Hi, my name is Evan, and I was born blind. Vision wasn't something that I ever really missed, since I never had it to begin with. Still, that didn't mean I didn't struggle with who I was and what being blind meant. It's not easy, but like everything else in the world, there are good and bad things about it. Now, I can see. It's really a medical miracle, and the doctors are still running so many tests to discover how it happened. My parents are in utter awe, and people at my school think I'm a superhero or something like that. To let you understand what happened, I need to begin way before the miracle occurred. As you can imagine, growing up being unable to see was a real pain. There was honestly a few perks to it, though. My hearing was crazy good, and I got pretty good at navigating through my life using the sounds around me. I was sometimes called Daredevil, which I found kind of silly, but also cool. So yeah, that was pretty neat. Plus, some people were really nice to me, and I met interesting folks who shared my same disability. I don't really think I would have become friends with them if I had been born under different circumstances. Being born blind does come with more than a few disadvantages, however. For starters, I don't even know what I look like, what my parents look like, or even what my crush looks like. You might think that's not a big deal, but for some reason, it really does affect me a whole lot. There are so many questions and doubts I have. I mean, people try to describe certain things like colors, but I couldn't really understand any of it. I mean, to me, green and red and blue simply didn't mean anything. Sure, I understood what colors meant rationally, but I couldn't picture it at all. I also dreamed without images, of course. In my dreams and nightmares, I simply hear sounds, but there's nothing standing there for me to see. What's funny is that people ask me if I just see black, but I wouldn't know what black looks like. To me, there is nothing when I open my eyes. No light, no shapes, no nothing. It's hard for people who can actually see to understand this concept, since they always relied on their vision. Even people who began their lives being able to see, but then become blind, can comprehend what colors are, how flowers look, and can remember their features. I have none of that, and in an odd way, it kind of broke my heart. I mean, I should have been used to it, but it still affected me deeply. My dad told me my mom's eyes were as blue as the sky, and I didn't even know what that really meant. Were they pretty? Were they bright? I couldn't know. From what I heard, my mom was a really beautiful woman. She had long curly hair and full lips. I sometimes touched her face to get a feeling of what she looked like, but it was still not the same as if I would have been able to take a real look at her. And my crush Laura apparently had short blonde hair with brown eyes. All I knew was that she had the sweetest laughter in the world, and she managed to make me chuckle even when I was feeling down. She also had really soft hands and long fingers. I knew that because she would sometimes take my hand to help me walk down the school hallways. She was a real sweetheart, and I felt my cheeks grow hot whenever she was around. One time, a friend of mine told me that I blushed when she talked to me. I asked him if it was really noticeable, and he just laughed, saying, "Yeah, it kind of did." I wonder if Laura realized that I was blushing when she was around. But if she did, she never told me anything about it. As a child, I didn't really get to enjoy the world around me too often. My parents were really protective, worried that I'd hurt myself. They would carry me around a lot and take me around with the stroller, even when I was old enough to walk on my own. They didn't know how to deal with my condition and were honestly just doing what they thought was better for me. I had to tell them that it upset me not being able to walk by their sides for my mom and dad to realize that what they were doing wasn't good for me in the long run. Sure, I wouldn't get hurt, but I would be incredibly sheltered as well. So, slowly, they began to give me more freedom, even though they always kept an eye on me. That was when they bought me my first cane and helped me learn how to use it. It was a big relief to finally be able to move around on my own two legs, even when walking down the street. Mom gasped from time to time, but I got really good at getting around with my cane. In time, she grew to understand that I would be okay if she allowed me to learn how to handle myself. If I have to be perfectly honest, though, it wasn't until I was over 11 or 12 when Mom began finally relaxing when we were outside. It was a long time coming, and from that point on, she was far more trusting of my abilities to handle myself. She was really the kindest woman I know, but she can be a bit overbearing from time to time. I was really saddened about all the amazing landscapes I was missing out on. I couldn't even watch TV as any other person would. I had to use special audio that describes what characters and people are doing in my favorite shows. Though there were Braille books in my home, I preferred listening to audiobooks. Still, it wasn't a complete solution, since the authors sometimes narrated things that I couldn't relate to at all. It was annoying, but I learned how to deal with it over time. My mom made sure I learned how to read in Braille at a young age since she didn't want me to be limited in my condition. My parents decided that they didn't want me to go to a special ed school. Instead, they sent me to a private school, hiring a learning assistant to accompany me in classes. They bought Braille versions of every book that we had to study from at school, too. Yeah, my parents were really awesome, and I was really lucky that they were wealthy enough to afford all those things. Overall, students and teachers were really nice to me, and I had a lot of friends. But then there were close-minded kids and bullies who simply enjoyed making fun of people who were a bit different. They would make jokes about me or be really mean to me from time to time. They would even stand up in front of me and begin making jokes about John Cena's catchphrase, "You can't see me!" The first time they made that joke, I didn't even understand it. I didn't even know they were waving their hands in front of their face either. One of my friends had to explain the reference. Honestly, I thought it was a really silly joke and didn't pay much attention. But after a while, it got really old. I got annoyed whenever one of those kids began teasing me with it because they just wouldn't stop, as if it was super funny or something. I would often ask my friends to describe what I looked like because I was really curious about what others saw when I entered a room. I was told I was handsome but had kind of a big nose. I also had thick lips like my mom. What they didn't understand was that I didn't want them to make me feel better. I just wanted to finally be able to really know what others saw. No matter how many times people described my looks, it still didn't help me at all. That depressed me a bit, but I didn't want to tell my parents about this and make them feel bad about me. So I tried to not let anyone know how upset I was about the issue since I didn't really think they'd understand anyway. People really take vision for granted. What I did ask my parents was if there was nothing they could do to restore my vision. I asked them about it really often, hoping that maybe something had changed. Doctors were so smart, perhaps they'd discovered a miracle cure. Well, the answer was always the same. They told me that if there was anything to be done, they would pay any price to help me, but my condition was irreversible. My mom would tell me stories that didn't include anything related to vision to make me feel better. I think she was really the one person who really understood my condition the most, and who always tried to make me feel good about who I was. Every night when my parents had already gone to sleep, I would get on my knees and pray, asking to be able to get my vision back. Of course, I rationally understood this was impossible, but part of me always wished that a miracle could happen. And much to my surprise, a bright summer day, it finally did. You can't even begin to comprehend my surprise when I opened my eyes that morning and everything I knew suddenly changed. I could actually see. It was the most amazing experience of my life. You might think that there might not be anything special about a room, but when you've never seen anything before, seeing anything at all is amazing. The walls were painted a bright shade of green. There were books, and my blankets were also colored and nice. My bedroom was lovely. I stretched my arms and saw my arms. I was in complete shock. I didn't know what to do or say. Was I dreaming? Even if I was, why would I be seeing any of this? I never have been able to before. I didn't even know how any of it looked like. I ran towards my bathroom and stared right into the mirror. There was my face. For the first time in my life, I was actually able to discover what I looked like. I was completely shocked. I had facial hair and a pretty big nose, but truth be told, I didn't think I was ugly. Perhaps what people had told me over the years was true. My mom called me from the kitchen, and I almost ran out to tell her about it. I stopped all of a sudden, wondering if they'd be happy or worried to know the truth. Perhaps they wouldn't believe me, or even take me to see 1,000,000 doctors. And what if the very next day my vision disappeared again? I didn't want them having to deal with anything like that. So I decided that I would wait a few days, and if I continued being able to see everything around me, then I would sit them down and reveal everything. So I pretended to still be blind, and then went to school. I couldn't believe everything I was now able to see. My mom really was as gorgeous as everyone told me, and I had the same lips as she did. Then I saw Laura when I climbed on the school bus. I smiled to myself. She was really as pretty as I imagined she'd be, and she really did have blonde hair. If I liked her before, I liked her even more then. She smiled when she saw me and called me over. I sat by her side and was delighted to know that she looked so happy to see me. Perhaps she even liked me back. Then I made another great discovery when I got to school. The kids who always mocked me, I'd imagined them being intimidating and tall, but they were all so silly looking. The guy who was called Jamal was so fat and he wore thick glasses. Another kid, Joel, was tiny and looked like a toddler. It made me feel so much better. They were just trying to make up for their own shortcomings after all. So the days slipped by and my vision didn't go away. I decided that this was my new life now, and I really enjoyed being able to see. So I finally opened up to my parents and told them the truth. They were shocked, but so happy, and hugged me so tightly. We did go to see several doctors, but I was okay with it. So far, no one has been able to explain what happened, but I don't care. I'm just happy I'm able to see for the first time in my life. Thanks for watching. What sense would you give up if you had to choose one? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other videos on our channel.